Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, welcome to the show. This is the Millennial Millionaire Podcast, and I am your host, Steven Cohen. This podcast is focused on bringing some of the wisest minds from across the globe to discuss concepts, strategies, and ideals that will lead them to be top performers in their respective industries and their lives. This show is for the millennials and millennials at heart to transcend their mindset, their health, and their income to the next level. We are so excited to have you on this journey with us. Welcome to the show. Yo, welcome back to the show, Millennial Millionaires. Today, we have a masterclass on real estate with a few of these real estate wizards. Today, we have Tim Stone. Tim is a real estate investor. He is the VP of So Capital Group, the host of the Student of the Game podcast, a master networker. And the crazy thing is, he's not even a millennial. He's 23 years old and has accomplished more than most people. And then sitting right next to him, we have Mr. Shane So. Shane is the fund manager at So Capital Group. He is an investor. He invests in real estate all over the United States as well as Costa Rica. His portfolio is over 400 doors, including homes, commercial buildings, and apartments. Shane also runs 2 real estate funds out of his office in Atlanta, Georgia. And today we're going to dive deep into how to create wealth, make money off of real estate, and all the meat and potatoes of it. So thank you guys so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, dude. So I know you're here for the day, knocking out a bunch of podcasts. Tim, we met at GrowthCon, I believe, right? Grant Cardone, about 2 years ago, maybe about 2 years ago. I think you were like 21 years old.
Yeah.
So to see your growth from afar, obviously, has been super cool. And Shane, I've done some research on you, dude, and to see your portfolio and your real estate acronyms have been super inspiring to see. So my first question for you guys is, why is real estate so important for young people to know when it comes to building wealth and creating freedom for themselves?
Well, one thing that's important is because you're going to have something to do with real estate at some point in your life. You're going to have to live somewhere. You will either buy it, you'll rent it, you can make money off of it, you can lose money off of it. Like, it exists. They're not making more land, and like you're going to have to deal with it in one way or another. So if you know how it can make you money, that might put you at an advantage, I would say.
No, 100%. Shane, we were talking before the show, and we'll get into your guys' story a little bit to create some context about your guys' journey. But I don't think either of you guys are real estate agents or have been real estate agents in terms of the sales side, but you absolutely have created a massive real estate portfolio, and it's your full-time job. Can you explain maybe for people that aren't as familiar? Because I think a lot of people think you have to get licensed or you have to be on the sales side, when that's not necessarily true. Like for me, I view solar as my active income opportunity, but I invest passively into real estate because I know that's my end game. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so a broker basically is selling a house or a property on behalf of another seller, and they're just taking a commission. What we do is we either buy properties and hold them for cash flow, or if we do sell them, we can take lump sums. So that's kind of why we do it.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. And I think it's also important for people to understand that real estate is a place where you can park your money, where it's not something that I think most people think when they buy a house, that money is gone, or it's, to some degree, it is locked up. But the way I always looked at real estate, it's kind of like a savings account. I don't know if you guys agree with me, where you're putting money away that is growing, hopefully, right? Over the history of time, real estate has always gone up in value. But it's a place where you can park money, allow that money to grow, obviously get the tax depreciation, and hopefully have some type of exit where you create wealth. Shane, I know you've done real estate for the last couple decades. Can you explain a little bit, maybe your journey in real estate and how you got into it?
Yeah, so I don't want to say decades because that makes me sound older than what I am, but I guess the last 6 years or so. Yeah, but I believe that real estate is the number one. It's like the less risky asset that you can buy. It comes with tax advantages. There's amazing appreciation. And the way we buy and hold. So when inflation happens and rental rates go up, it actually benefits us even more. So and that kind of goes back to how I started. So I guess Tim's 23.
Yep, 23.
Yeah, so I first started to want to get into real estate at 25. And the only thing that I knew about real estate was HGTV stuff, where you find a house, buy it, you renovate it, and you sell it. So I did go out and talk to those brokers you were talking about, and I got a lot of houses under contract for 5 years, really. And I'd cancel each time. So I'd find something, get it under contract, get afraid, and cancel. But it wasn't until the 5th year that when I got a house under contract, just like I always did, it was only $45,000. My buddy was the agent, and I went to call him to cancel, and he said, Shane, just do it. And he kind of pushed me a little bit because he wanted his commission too, or whatever the reason was. But finally I said, okay. So I reached out to a buddy. He lended me to $45,000. I used $20,000 on credit cards and bought my first property. That's how I got into it. And it was a fix and flip. And then, now I'm not sure about most other people, but I really don't like fix and flip or wholesaling too much. But I realized that if I bought a house, fixed it, sold it, I'd have to repeat it over and over again. So I started studying about how I could become a landlord, really. And I found a video of an old man on YouTube. Can't find his videos anymore, actually, but he started talking about creative financing and why it's important to buy and hold, just like what you said, the appreciation tax advantage. So I started buying rentals at that time. So that's how I got into everything. That was single family, by the way.
Can you walk us through your journey of 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 5 to 8, 8 to 10, and then maybe that transition over to commercial? Because I tell people all this the time. I think your first one's the hardest in anything you do, because the unknown is typically scary, and people, when they're unknown about something, they're uncertain and they don't want to take action. And then when you get your first one, you're like, oh, that's not that bad. I know how escrow works. I know how this appraisal thing works. Can you kind of walk us through your journey of what it took to scale your real estate business?
Yeah, so kind of going back to the first fix and flip, first house that I bought. My birthday's in February, so I bought this in January when I was 29, 1 month before I turned 30.
Happy belated.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Thank you. Makes me feel old. But so we bought that in January. For 8 months, I had to deal with contractors, stressing out about, if the contractors are doing their job. In fact, one of the contractors did not even, he started the work and he bailed. We had to get another contract. I had all this in my head. And as we started getting toward like May, June, it started dawning on me, this is stressful. I got to deal with contractors, more construction based than real estate based. And I started remembering what other people had said about real estate prior, is that 2008, 2010, the market fell. I'm thinking, man, I spent $45,000. I have my friends' money on the line. I have money on my credit cards. What if the housing market tanks and I can't sell it for a profit? So like I said, bought it in January. May, June, I started, I found that video of that old man talking. And from that point, I realized that creative finance was the way to go. And it sounded like a scam, to be honest with you. How can you buy a home with no money down, no credit, and no bank? It just sounded like a scam. But anyway, fast forward, whenever we sold the house in August, I remember I went to a park and I sat down under a gazebo. And I'm an introverted person, to be honest with you. I'm very introverted. I don't like to, I'm not very outgoing, So I was like, man, I got to do sales calls. I know you're a sales guy, man. So you're very extrovert, huh?
I wouldn't say that, man. I think naturally I'm an introvert, but I had to work really hard to become an extrovert in the profession that I choose.
Well, man, okay. Well, anyway, I remember I sat there at the park. I made a phone call to a lady, and she said that, I have a tenant that's getting out on Friday. So I met her on Saturday. After sitting there talking to her, going through a process, looking at the property, the house is trashed really bad. And I said, I finally told her, I said, look, I don't know if the bank will give a loan on this property due to the condition. The kitchen floor was kind of slumped. The roof needed to be repaired. It was filthy inside, fresh eviction. And I told her, I said, look, if you'd be willing, I'd like to buy the property. I'll pay you monthly payments, and I'll take it in as-is condition, get everything fixed that needs to get fixed, and then I can give you your price. Long story short, she accepted, and that was my first home. And remember, it took me 5 years to get that first deal that I got in January. So this is my second home at that time. So first house in January, second house in August. We sold that first house in August as well. And I just kind of repeated that. I just went crazy and started calling everyone, just like you said. I'm introverted, but because of I guess being motivated, knowing, man, this is what, it's not as hard as I thought it was. I got 60 homes from August to December. So I called a bunch of, motivated sellers. I reached out to tired landlords, and, told them, hey, look, I'm a young guy just trying to catch up to you. I'm trying to build my portfolio. I know that when you bought this rental property or these properties, you bought them primarily to cash flow and retire. Let me come in and help you retire, and I'll do all the hard work. So that's how I went from, 1 to 2 to 3, got 60 single family homes. And then the second year, I did 180 single family homes. And then I said, maybe I can try to get into commercial. So like I said, I started in Taekwondo schools in the beginning. My landlord was kicking me out of my unit when my lease ended. And I was like, oh no. So I found a Sears building that had just gone empty. I called the owner and pitched him some creative terms too, just like my single family. And that's how I got into commercial. That was one of my first commercial. And then I was, well, that's pretty neat. And I continued buying, single family here and there. And then, I'm sorry, am I talking too much, man? Okay.
No.
Well, all right, then the next thing that happened is I was looking on LoopNet. I said, I want to get into multifamily. I want to be like Grant Cardone. He's getting all these multifamily. And I found a property that was $1.9 million for 44 units, kind of a C-grade property. And I always just skipped. I passed. I said, no, it's not worth that. A year it's on the market, and I see that they raised the price to 2.6. And I was like, man, what's going on here? And I was like, no, I'm not going to pay no attention to that. Then I was listening to a Grant Cardone video, and he said, if you want to get into multifamily, just walk the properties. And it dawned on me. I said, man, me getting into single family, it took me 5 years to get started. I just need to be around this. So I just want to go call this owner, practice looking at multifamily. I'll never buy it. It's not worth it. I'm not going to be able to buy it. I don't have no money enough to buy something like that. And I don't have the net worth, I don't think. So I called them. I met with them. And as I was walking the property with the sellers, I realized they said all the motivational things, like motivation, like a motivated seller. Like they said all the cues that I heard from single family, they were saying those same things. They're tired of handling the property. They don't want the property, all those things. And I was able to buy that apartment complex with no money down, $8,000 in closing costs, but we bought it. My monthly payment was $12,500. The rents coming was $18,000. In 60 days in Georgia, we have to give a 6-day notice. We raised the rents to $28,000, and now we're at $43,000 a month. Fast forward to now. So that's how I went from single family to commercial to multifamily. And then from there, I just said, I'm going to try this and everything. So we went into billboards, laundromats, cleaners, storage units. What else do we do? Land. We bought stuff in Costa Rica, So we got 2-3 properties there. I got a farm there. So now we're trying to get into farmland here. We haven't gotten one yet. So that's kind of my story of how we kind of transitioned.
Wow, man. That's it's inspiring because, to see the final product of, how many homes do you say you have in your portfolio? 260 plus all the multifamily and
300-400 doors is what we're with right now.
300-400 doors, which it took you a year to get that, or 5 years in order to get that first store, and then you're able to scale. Out of how much of your portfolio would you say is creative finance?
Oh, 95%, I would say. Yeah. And we actually, even on the traditional stuff, because you was telling about your single family, usually on a single family, like, especially for those who don't know, if you find a single family home and you want to buy it as an investor, you're going to put 20% down, right? Well, we kind of came up with a creative dispo way to be able to get that money back. So, quick example, let's just say you find a home, $200,000. You have to put $40,000, that's 20%, while it's under contract. And let's say you have no money, by the way, we source for what they call a tenant buyer, someone who's willing to pay an option fee of $40,000 to $50,000 and buy the house for $50,000 more than what we're buying it for. And we have our cash flow above what our mortgage and their lease payment will be. So we may sell it for $250,000. Someone will pay us $50,000 down. We've made 10, but we've also got our 40 back, and then we just repeat over and over again. So that way you can kind of reuse the same or recycle the same down payment over and over again. and build your portfolio. So we do that as well. That's creative, but it's mixed with a little bit of traditional buying.
No, I love that, and my gears are definitely going as well, because I think everyone listening to this and most people, they know they should be buying real estate. They know they should be buying properties, investing their money. They know that 10 years from now, in most cases, this property is going to be worth a lot more than it was 10 years ago. I think people just don't have the how, or they overcomplicate it. You know, a quote I love is complexity is the enemy of execution. When things are complex, people don't execute. So when it comes to creative finance, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, and Tim, I know this is something that you focused on. You just had Pace Morby on your show as well. Can you walk us through what is in it for the buyer, or I'm sorry, the seller of creative finance? Because in my mind, for the buyer, it makes a lot of sense, right? Zero down, you don't have to run a credit check. You're able to get into the property for little or nothing, maybe closing costs. And I know, you have sub-2 creative finance. You've done so many of these. Obviously, you have the pitch down, and you obviously know what's in it for them, or else they wouldn't want to do it. Can you walk us through what's in it for the actual seller to make these deals make sense for people?
Yeah. So you used the word pitch. We try and say it not in the word of we're not pitching them anything. What we do is we try and sit down with the seller and find out the situation that they're in. Because that question, I mean, there's like 10 different examples or more that we could answer. For example, sub-2, that's when you're buying a property subject to their pre-existing loan. You're just taking over their loan payments. Maybe you're paying them a little extra for their equity, or maybe you're just taking it for what they owe. Is usually they don't want the monthly payment. Either they got to move, or maybe it's an inherited property. You never know the situation there. In the case of the, so single family really is because they got to move, they got a debt, or like I said with the landlord lady, she had the house free and clear. She wanted this for retirement. She's an older lady, 70s plus. Well, that's not old, that's still young. She's in the prime, but she wants to retire the correct way and just be free. But I like I said, I tell her, I'll take all the bad stuff and handle it. You just get your check every month. So that was the attractive thing to her. She's still been able to have some retirement money each month, but not deal with all the headache, And then on our side, the buyer side, we get depreciation of the property, right? We get to depreciate the property too. We get the, in inflation times, rental rates go up. We get all that stuff too. So that's our benefit.
Yeah. Another piece is if they've owned the property for a long time, we'd help them with their taxes. So say they've got a portfolio of homes, or say it's a multifamily property, and if we just wrote them a check for $1 million, you can give an example in one of the deals you did, like 33% of it would have gone straight to taxes.
Yeah.
Or when you do the seller financing, they're going to pay the taxes as they receive the gain. So it's somewhat easier if you have other businesses and other areas where you can find losses and write-offs.
Yeah.
To write off a couple thousand versus $1 million.
Yeah. And in usual real estate, most people think that because when you're doing a transaction, someone's got to lose, the seller or the buyer. Either the buyer overpaid or the seller had to whatever the case. In creative financing, the thing I like about it, especially if I'm going to buy one property from you and I say, hey, look, here's the terms, here's everything. I want to be as clear and transparent as possible, because we're basically married together for that amount of time. So I believe it forces us to create a win-win solution for the seller. And then going back to what he said, that and he's talking about the multifamily I bought, is that they've owned it for more than 30 years. And, in the negotiations, when we were talking, trying to figure out how we could structure the deal to work, because they didn't want to owner finance in the beginning. But when they went to their accountant and said, what is going to be my tax consequence? It was 33%, which is basically capital gains plus depreciation recapture. So it's like $750,000 or so. I think it was something close to that out of the $2.5 million. So the way we structured it, it kind of helped them tackle that capital gains per year or over an extended amount of time instead of all at once. And then every year they can find a way to, get a loss and tackle that.
Mitigate a little bit.
Yeah.
Totally. Do you guys ever concern yourself, and maybe concern is not the right word, but when you're doing creative finance, most of the deals you're probably getting in with no money down, or little maybe equity in the deal in some cases, because obviously, the seller they're in a situation where they're underwater, whatever the case is. do you ever feel like you're too over leveraged, or I guess what is your risk tolerance when it comes to accumulating so much properties with not as much capital in some of these investments?
Okay, so it depends. Do you want me to do single family or multifamily, or do you want me to give an example?
Yeah, either.
Okay, so the reason why there's a difference is single family, if it's 4 units or under, it moves with the economy. Like in 2008, 2010, the prices drop and they go by comps. In commercial or multifamily that's 5 units or more, it's based upon the numbers, you know? So, sorry. Yeah, where was we going?
Based on the income. So
So it's based on the income. So on single family, and honestly, I'm going to go back to what Grant Cardone said. He said that billionaires, they'll overpay for a product. And some people are bashing Grant, saying, oh, he's overpaying in this high interest rate environment. Why is he doing that? It's because he understands what they call forced appreciation. So, for example, my $2.5 million apartment complex, it wouldn't sell at 1.9. And they had so many people get it under contract and no one could get financing. It never worked. They were overcharging. I knew it too. And then they raised it to 2.5. I went to look at it, not expecting to buy it because I didn't have the capacity at the time. Plus, I knew it was overpriced. But because of the terms they gave, I looked at the numbers and raised the rent, did some improvements with the cash flow, and recently it appraised for 5.2. So that's where, so we went from 2.5 being overpaid to now being worth 5.2, and now I have a lot of equity. So that's in the multifamily. In single family, you got to be able to pivot. So sometime you'll buy a property at 45, like my first flip, 45, put 20 into it. We did sell that for 125, so we had a little bit, right? But what if I would have bought it for 45, put in 20, and it dropped down to 80? And after commissions and everything, I would have only made $5,000. That's still a plus. But now let's make it more extreme. Let's say you buy a property that's worth $100,000. You buy it for 80, and you don't have to do any repairs. You're like, man, I got a good deal. And then the market tanks 25% and it's worth 75, and you've given 80. That's a problem for a wholesaler or a flipper. But for someone who holds, we're just concerned about the cash flow, the tax benefits, and in 10 years, it'll go up above that. So that's kind of how I look at leverage. Now, another thing that you have to take into account is the terms. So if you have a balloon on the payment, and a balloon means, let's just say you get a loan for 30 years, you can get a 30-year loan means the monthly payments are based on that, but the balloon is at 3 years, means that the year 3, you owe the full amount. That's when you have to be careful. And that's why in owner financing or creative financing in any way, in some of those, you can eliminate that by not having balloons or having options to extend depending on certain variables with the seller. So you definitely want to have all the terms on your side that makes it so that you can. What I tell a seller is, if they tell me terms that are really bad, like I want it paid off in 1 year, I said, well, sir, to be honest with you, we probably could cash you out or cash out refinance or do whatever we need or sell in 1 year. However, I want to make sure I can fulfill what I promise you. So I'd like to have it at 5 years or no balloon. But I just want to make sure I have no prepayment penalty when I cash you out, So the terms are the most important thing when it comes to leverage.
Yeah. No,
sorry, that was a lot. I'm sorry.
That's the cool thing, because it's creative finance. There's not a bank. So we can sit down, you own the property, I want to buy it. We can decide what we want to do with it, like how the deal's going to work. So if it makes $10,000 a month, and I say, after expenses and everything, like I could comfortably pay you $6,500. The bank might look at it and the value and the interest rates and say, oh, well, the mortgage is going to be $9,000 and there's no cash flow, so we're not going to do the deal.
Yeah.
But like if we can agree on $6,500 and I'm confident the property makes enough, and over time we can increase the rent and it's going to be super easy, you can make $6,500 a month passive income for as long as you want. So it's pretty cool.
Were you telling about your 10 unit?
Yeah, so I did that on a deal, and this was before we were working together, but Shane told me exactly what to say to the guy. I bought a duplex from him for $195,000. And then when I was talking to him, found out, I always ask the question, do you have any more properties that you'd want to sell? And he said, yeah, I got 10 units, but probably don't want to sell them for 3 to 5 years. So what Shane told me to say is like, great, I want to come see him. Like, let's talk about it. What I'd like to do is, over the next 3 to 5 years, when you want to get the money, I want to take over the property, fix it up, make it look good, get my numbers and my financials on it, my systems in place in the property management. So in 3 to 5 years, we go to the bank and it's a super simple cash out. And I've created my equity and we can fulfill what we promised. So it was making $7,500 a month, take out taxes, insurance, expenses, whatever. I figured he was already making $4,000 in profit. So I said, can I give you $4,000 a month for the next 5 years? And he said, sure.
Yeah.
And we did the deal.
Yeah, and him seller financing it to him like that, it helps him to fulfill it because it's considered a refinance with the bank instead of a purchase. So it's a lot easier because he's carrying his numbers, his tax returns with that property there.
Right.
That helps so much easier.
I love it, guys. This is a lot of really good information, and I think it's so important for people to understand because I think everyone's goal, their dream, is to have financial freedom. You know, that term is thrown around all the time. You know, beach money, 6 Saturdays, 1 Sunday. You know, not have to trade time for money. Right? Warren Buffett has that great quote. You know, if you don't figure out the way to make money while you sleep, you're gonna have to work until you die. And I feel like you guys are giving the code for this. If I'm listening, though, I think the one question that most people have when it comes to this stuff, and I know there's a multi-answer to this, but I'm curious your guys' opinion. How do you find these deals?
Okay, yeah, I'm going to go in and, get you ready to answer this for sure. But so what we're trying to do is what we say is people need to start in single family, okay? And we've tried to, I've always told them it takes 3 months usually to get some good momentum, okay? And that's someone who's kind of starting in a new area. So in order to kind of squeeze that together, we're trying to squeeze it within 7 days. So what we did is we sent Tim and another guy that is working with us named Colin to 2 different cities, and they had 7 days to get a deal done. So now I'll let you go on that, explain that.
So here's where part of the challenge was can't use any connections I already had and couldn't use any of my own money to get a real estate deal in 7 days in a random city.
You guys record it?
We did, yeah. So it's a lot of footage.
Undercover real estate investor?
Yeah, it was a lot like Undercover Billionaire, but it was 2 people and 7 days worth of footage each. So it's a lot to edit. But as soon as we spun a wheel with the cities, like I didn't know until like we showed up to film. Hey, here's your ticket. Go to the airport.
He didn't know where it was going. Yeah,
didn't know where I was going. So I found out it was Orlando. I'm like joining Facebook groups. There's tons of free Orlando, Florida Facebook or Orlando real estate, Central Florida real estate. And I'm like, hey, are there any networking events happening this week? Anyone want to connect? Blah, 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 blah. So by the time I landed, I had all these people that reached out because people want to help. They want to partner. They want to see how we can make money together. Started literally in the airport calling the people that sent me their phone numbers. And one guy said, yeah, let's meet for breakfast tomorrow. So we meet and he kind of heard some of this creative real estate stuff, but he's just cash offer wholesaler guy. Just send people a low offer and then get it under contract and then sell it to an investor for a little bit more. It's a model that works. But he has all these people that want to sell, but for whatever reason could not accept that cash offer. So he's like, man, we can pay him more money. Like, let's just start calling my leads. So for 4 hours, we sat there and called his leads. And he's like, hey, I'm with this guy, Tim. I know you want to sell. You didn't like my offer. I think we can get you a little more. Can we meet you at the property? That's a big thing. A big thing that Shane's taught me is like, go to the property, shake their hand, see them in person. Like, kind of like we were saying before the podcast, it's a lot better to do the podcast in person because a lot of human communication is just your body language. Yeah. So went to go meet this guy, walked through the house, talked to him. I started coming up with some terms that would make sense for us. And he's like, okay, I'd really just like to be cashed out. And most of the time when you're pitching the creative finance, they don't want to do it. Almost every time. Almost every time. So I'm like, what do you really need to get for it? And he said, can't do anything less than 190. And that's the number our cash offer was at. He actually had an email in his inbox with a contract at 190. And I was like, yeah, we'll do 190. Pulled a contract out of the car. We signed it on the hood of the car. Had some people look at it the next day, and then we sold it for 205.
So 15 grand.
Made 15 grand. And that was on day 5.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So if I was getting started, I mean, some people say don't do Zillow, but I say do Zillow for sale by owner. Facebook Marketplace, go straight to the sellers, people that are selling their homes, Or one that's very important, because what are we looking for here in creative financing? We're looking for someone willing to sell their home and take monthly payments. Look on Facebook and go to the rental section and contact directly to the landlord and say, hey, I see that you have this house. I see that you're wanting, I don't know, $1,500 a month. If I want to buy it, what would you sell it for? Get them to give you a price, like, I don't know, 300 grand. So, okay, great. Well, would you mind if I just pay you $1,500 a month, until it's paid off, and I'll do repairs, maintenance, the taxes, and the insurance, and you can just net that $1,500. That's one way. Another way is go to the courthouse and see like the current evictions going on. Reach out to those landlords, because they're used to taking monthly payments too, and they're just wanting to simplify it. They don't want to deal with tenants, but they want a monthly income. Those are really good leads. And there's
well, especially a
dozens more.
landlord that's doing the eviction themselves. They don't have an attorney. They don't have a property manager. They're very active in a stressful situation. So maybe they want to sell it, maybe they don't. But one thing I was going to say to your point earlier is a lot of people, their end goal is they want to invest in real estate. So they become a real estate agent, or they get into property management. I have a friend, Christian Osgood, who was just talking to us about it. Is like, people want to become a real estate investor and they get into something real estate adjacent, and then they don't invest in any real estate. Like that was what he wanted to do. He wanted to get into real estate, so he worked at CoStar and sold their software. And he's like, hey, I've been doing this for a few years and I don't own any real estate. So it's like, you can just start buying real estate. And honestly, like Shane did, like, didn't have any money to do it and started buying real estate and start building the passive income. You just have to know the strategies and how to talk to people about it, how it makes sense for them. It was a good question you asked, like, why would a seller do it? Well, there's a lot of good reasons. You need to know them and be able to explain them, and it's real. Like, I've done it. It sounds crazy, but like, Shane told me exactly what to say to that guy. And then a few weeks later, we went to the closing table and I owned the property. I didn't put any money down.
How old was you when you did that?
22.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, man.
Never asked my credit score, never asked for a proof of funds, nothing.
Yeah, because I mean, I run a solar sales team out here in Vegas, and obviously we're in a lot of states, but one of the things that I implore people to do, it's like, hey, go make your first 6 figures, go make $100K a year, and then when you're here for a couple of years, like, go start getting your first property. You leverage
awesome.
The first home buyer's loan or 10% down, because you need to start buying assets. Because in our business, I would say one of the biggest challenges is most people in sales, or really any business, right? You make a lot of money and then your lifestyle goes up. You make a lot of money, your lifestyle goes up, and you're still in the rat race because you're not getting ahead. You're just having nicer things, nicer watches, nicer clothes, nicer cars, which there's nothing wrong with that, but make sure that you're paying yourself first, and setting yourself up for the future. So hearing your guys' strategies when it comes to creative finance and all these options, granted, at least for me, I'm trying to put myself in the viewer's shoes. My full-time job is my business, right? So from a passive side, maybe not passive, but from a part-time side, if you guys weren't doing real estate full-time and this wasn't your full-time gig, what advice would you give people that maybe are working a 9-to-5, or they have their own business, that are making some decent money, and that have some skills and they're ambitious and hungry, but maybe they don't have the time or energy to invest 100% into real estate?
So that would determine the person's age. Do they have money? Do they not have money? So let's just say this is a 20-year-old guy. Okay, everyone's heard this. You need to buy a house hack it. You can rent the rooms, and then the second year you buy another home. You rent out the first home, right? And that's the normal way. And honestly, so let's talk about that actually, because that's a good way to do it. It's not the most creative, but it's traditional. Like, it's a neat way to get in. You put 3%, 5%, 10% down. Put it down, get the loan. You live in it the first year. The second year comes. You rent out the first one. You can do one house per year for 10 years or so. And then during that time, you can
build some decent wealth.
Yeah, that's a good way. If it's an older person that has been settled in their job, they're maybe 30, younger than me, but older. What I'm saying is they may have credit, they may have some capital. You said you did syndications. If you don't have the time or effort or anything to do it, or you know that you're not going to go out and do it, do syndication, like invest in those funds, but if you want to say, I want to go into build my own portfolio, I would say you could try and do some creative stuff, but you really do need to find a mentor and be around it. Kind of like I mentored him in a sense. Makes me feel old saying it like that, but technically, he was 22 years old. He'd never done anything. Was that your first creative deal?
First creative deal.
Yeah. Did you think now? Another thing he left out is what if the guy would have asked for a down payment of 20% on $1 million property? Technically, he did give a down. He bought the duplex.
Yes, I bought the duplex before, and I threw that into the conversation, the negotiation. Like, hey, think of this as the down payment, and I kind of said it a little sarcastically. I'm like, hey, think of that as the down payment. And he's like, okay. And like, in reality, I did give him $200,000.
Yeah.
But I got a loan. I put $30,000 down to buy the duplex.
Yeah.
But,
so imagine if you find a guy that has 10 homes. And what I say is about finding a mentor is let them look at your deal because they may have they have more experience and they'll see something around it. So let's just say that, now I don't remember how much you said you put down on a duplex, but let's just say it's a $200,000 duplex and you can get a residential FHA loan. What is FHA?
3.5%, 3%.
So you could pay like $6,000-7,000, buy a $200,000 duplex, rent out one side, live in one side. And in this case, there's 10 more units. You say, hey, sir, sell me the other 10. That $200,000 I gave, consider that the down payment.
Yeah.
That way he's built a relationship.
Right. And if I didn't ask you, what I would have done is just followed up with him 5 years later.
Yeah.
And he probably would have sold it to someone that called him a year later and said, hey, can we do it this way?
Yeah.
So I wanted to say something to your point that I think you might agree with is, obviously, we're full-time real estate investors. We're looking at deals all day, every day. Like, if you have a job and that, like, you can't look at real estate deals 8-9 hours a day, I think you should really focus on increasing your income a lot, like, very significantly. Because there's a lot of young guys that follow me and reach out to me, and they're like, hey, I've got $10,000. What should I invest in? It's like, they're asked for stocks, crypto, real estate advice. I'm like, even if you got a phenomenal return, like, I mean, some people consider 8% phenomenal, 10, 12% a phenomenal return. Bro, you made $1,000 in a year. You could take that 10,000 and maybe go to a training or a course or a mentor or whatever, like start a business, and you could be making $10,000 a month by the end of the year. It's like, okay, well, now you're making $120,000 instead of $1,000. So I think if you're looking for the passive income, your active income needs to be a certain level before you
No, I love that.
go for it.
I had a mentor once told me, if you have to ask where you need to invest your money, you need to invest in yourself.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
that's good. Good.
Yeah, and I want to go to the extreme part because I want to feel like we've answered really well, like for the new person. So I want to pretend like we're talking to someone that has no money, no credit, and they have a job, just full time, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. What we do. I would say, even though you don't have a ton of time, every night find one property that you can call the next day. So if it's like tonight, if I look on Facebook or look on Zillow, I'll find one property. If I can get directly to the seller, the next day I just do one phone call. I believe you do that for 30 days, you'll get someone to sell to you, seller financing. Specifically, you have a mentor that can help you too.
You're building the skill set, investing in the skill set, like kind of like you could say you're in a sales career, like you could develop your sales skills and close more deals and make more money, or you could literally do what I did in 5 days. I kind of forgot that example and came back to it. Is like, be willing to do the work and know what to do and partner with someone. And we made 15,000, split it 50-50, made $7,500 in a week.
Shout out to Brandon, by the way.
Shout out to Brandon.
No,
for real.
I love that. And I love that you brought up Zillow because it's funny. All of my single family properties, I've found myself on Zillow. Granted, I didn't do creative finance. I went through the realtor.
Zingle would be a cool
Zingle would be
company.
cool. Someone trademarked that. But all of them I found. I'm a Zillow freak. Every night I'm on Zillow. It's just a weird thing. And I just like seeing, I like doing some dream building, look at the $5, $6, $8, $10 million homes. But I also like knowing what's going on in the area. I like knowing what houses are going for. What can you get at the $1 million price point? What can you get at the $400,000 price point? So to add your guys' system and formula and talk tracks and cut through the agents directly to the homeowner, it's something that people can do every single day to get better at the skill set of finding deals, know what to look for, and also craft I know you don't like the word pitch, but craft their message to the homeowner on how to create that win-win.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you guys. I'm curious. So Shane, obviously you've been doing real estate for a long time. Tim as well, a little bit younger. You guys are at different seasons, but like for me, my goal when it comes to my next 5 years is I want to create a $10 million net worth that is producing around 8% a year, because that'll create $800K in passive income, whether that's, some in a brokerage account, stocks, real estate. And then I feel like that could cover my lifestyle. And then at that point, I don't have to work because I have to. I get to do what I want because I want to. Do you guys have at least a number when it comes to real estate, a target where it's like a certain net worth, a certain portfolio, a certain amount of recurring income where you feel like that's your target, or what's been motivating you to reach that?
I've had a goal that I've written down for a long time that was to own 20,000 units. And I don't know that there was really anything specific behind it, but it was a really big number. That's like a really scary number. But there are people out there that own 20,000 units, so it's possible. And once I get close to it, maybe I'll change that. But I'm nowhere close, so I'll keep it at 20,000.
And to me, I like to treat it like a game. And I'm a Christian, so the Bible says do everything as if you're doing it for God. And, so I'm going to do everything to the best of my ability. So if I'm going to get into something, I want to make sure I do the best and grow to the absolute maximum in that. And I'm not into prosperity stuff, like gospel stuff, like in religion or anything, but I just feel like the more I can grow, the more I can help others. Because I used to be a full-time missionary since I was younger, really. So I feel like, nonprofit is very non-profit, if that makes sense. So the more profit I can make, the more I can help those that don't have opportunities, in some of the areas. You know what I mean? Like people where I've gone, like in Central America and South America, it's not like they can just do creative finance. They're making their houses out of mud. You know what I mean? So I feel like that kind of makes me feel like, you know what? I have a purpose of why I'm growing to the sizes that I want to go to. So I love to grow into hundreds of millions to the possible billions, because then I can, help people. That's just what I feel. There's verses in the Bible that says, I was naked and you didn't clothe me. I was, hungry and you didn't feed me. Those kind of verses. I know this isn't a religious podcast, but, I just feel, if that's out there, why not do everything I can to instead of to something that can completely, keep that going and feeding. So you know how they say, you can give a guy a fish, he'll eat for today. You teach him. Well, what they're basically saying is you should invest in cash flow is what I think. So this is kind of like a machine that'll print out money to keep funding those things and maybe, help other opportunities. So that's kind of my purpose for it anyway.
I think when you understand what's possible and what you can make happen, and you have the business model and it works and it's profitable and it's scalable and you can keep doing it, well, it's like money's going to amplify a good person or amplify a bad person. Like if you have more... If you're a good person, you have more money, you can do more good. If you're a bad person, you have more money, you can do more bad.
And I don't want money to ruin me either. So if I know my purpose, then I know the direction.
But then you're like, well, if you know you're a good person, you know how to make money, you know that more money will allow you to do more good.
That's right.
You should continue to make more money, I think.
That's right. Grant said something really neat, and I've always said it. In fact, I said it to Chris the time, because one of our friends, Chris, is some people say, no, 80 grand, that's all I need, that's fine. And Grant said, that's the most selfish thing I've ever heard. Why don't you make 200 grand with less time and less effort, keep your 80 and donate the 120,000. I always thought that, I always remember that. So, and I think he's 100% right on that, basically what you said.
This is a thought I had recently, and I don't know why, but it's like business owners or the entrepreneur should have a moral obligation to be as profitable as they can be, especially if you have a lot of employees. Because you see what happens if you're running a company on a 3% profit margin. You're giving everybody as much money as you possibly can. You're taking home nothing. The market shifts a little bit outside of your favor. Now you got 150 people you can't pay. You look at what happened with Dana White with COVID, when they couldn't fight for a while and they had to figure it out, and he didn't lay anybody off. But people were always like, he doesn't pay the fighters enough. He's making too much money, blah, blah, blah. But when things went bad, he took care of all his people because he had a very profitable business.
Yeah. No, I love what you guys said. Two things I'll point out, and then we'll pivot a little bit, is I believe the more money I make, the better person I become, and the better person I become, the more money I make.
I like that.
My
That's
entrepreneur journey has been tied so much to self growth and personal development, and almost kind of like a personal discovery over this last decade, where the more confident I become, the more kind I become, the more authentic I become, has always correlated to the more money I become. And I never really understand how bad people got wealthy. I get it. I know you can use certain techniques and laws and things,
Deceiving.
but for me, it just is so out of my psyche, because I feel like the better I become as a human being, the more money I make. And I love that belief, because that will just allow me to continue to expand in the right way. Because there's a quote that I love. I think I came up with it, but I'm not sure. It says, hard work creates success, but character sustains it. Because there's so many people that I know that maybe made quick money, maybe they crushed it on flips in a certain year, maybe they crushed it in this company or had this big exit, and they were doing well for a year or 2 years. But if you track their journey 5 years, a decade, they're never able to get back to originally were, because they took the shortcut, or their identity didn't exceed their income. Their income exceeded their identity. Therefore, they lost it. First point. Second point, I've been thinking a lot about this concept of selfishness versus selflessness. And I forgot where I heard this, but it made so much sense to me. Most people think that you should be 100% selfless. And that's actually not the right thing to do, because if you're 100% selfless, you're caring about everyone else but yourself.
Yep.
And the issue is, if your cup's not full, you can't fill anyone else's cup. And you can't give what you don't have. So you shouldn't be 100% selfish either, because then you're probably a narcissist. I definitely don't want you hanging out with my fiance, right? Because all you care about is yourself, and I don't trust that you have anyone else's best interest in mind. So the right combo is maybe like a 70%, maybe a 60% selfish, and a 30% selfish. Because you can focus on yourself, making sure you smell good, making sure you're a good contributor to society, doing what you need to, but you're also caring about other people, making sure that you're taking other people wherever you go. And it's just an interesting topic. So I'm glad you brought that up.
It is. It's funny you said that. Like, when you were explaining it, the first thing I thought of, you were 100% selfless, you wouldn't brush your teeth.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, no, it's true. I want to pick your guys' brain a little bit and really get into it, because I think real estate for you guys is the vehicle that has created wealth and continue to create wealth. But without the right philosophy, the right mindset, perspective, character, identity, it doesn't matter how good your vehicle is. If you're not a good driver, you're not going to maximize your potential. So question for you, Shane, have you always had this entrepreneur spirit? And if not, where was the shift in your life where you went from someone who maybe the world told them what to do versus you told the world what to do?
Man, that's a great question. When I was little, I'd always collect candy, and then I'd try and sell it. So I feel like I was always entrepreneur-like. And then, I grew up in a Taekwondo school since I was 3. My dad's from Korea, and so we grew up in a school, Taekwondo school. So I'd always still try candy. At tournaments at the school itself, I would try and do private lessons. And then I would even hold car washes. I loved kind of just trying to find a way to make a buck, I guess, when I was a kid. But as I grew up, went to school, I definitely wanted to be, because my dad's Korean especially, they wanted to be doctor, lawyer, and I get it, very traditional. My dad's 83, he grew up in the Korean War and everything, So I did go to school. I went to college. Year and a half in, I was like, man, it's tough. I was job shadowing a doctor too, because I was excited to be a doctor, to be honest with you. Went and job shadowed them, and all the doctors, all of them said, don't do it. Yeah. Okay, and I was like, okay, and I kind of heard it, but what really got me is I realized that they worked so much, it was tough, and they saw a lot to make $150,000 a year working at the hospital. If you own your own practice, you could do more. But I just remember thinking, man, that is tough. And my older brother, basically, he owned another Taekwondo school. And I said, man, he's making more than these doctors, and he's doing martial arts. And I just, something just was offsetting there. I realized that the diploma only gave you the ability to either be in very specific jobs if you wanted to be an entrepreneur and use your degree, or it just made you to be an employee. And I didn't want to have a limit. So that's kind of my story on that.
No, I love that, dude.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because I think as at least millennials, my generation, as you grow up, you're kind of taught that success is a certain mold, right? A doctor, a lawyer, a surgeon, a practitioner. And for the longest time, at least for me, I really bought into that. I thought, hey, if I didn't go to college, get a good grade, get a degree, like I wouldn't be successful. I'd end up working a normal job, dead end, not being fulfilled and all the things. And then as you get older, you start to realize, wow, there's so many ways, especially in the 21st century. You know, if you would have told me a 23-year-old could be, you know, making X amount of money, have X amount of net worth, have this amount of freedom, like I didn't really start getting into entrepreneurship until I was 22, 23 years old, where, you know, now there's 18-year-old TikTokers making 6 figures a month and traveling the world and doing all these things. I just feel like the shift in consciousness for what is possible in this world is changing. And I think social media and technology and the information age is a big reason. But for those that aren't happy with what they're doing, it's like there is no reason you shouldn't plug into a mentor, shouldn't listen to a podcast. You shouldn't be able to get proximity to certain people because there's no excuse. You know, you guys have access.
YouTube is free.
Yeah.
YouTube University, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, question for you. So when we first met, you were 21. I don't know when you got into entrepreneurship. I imagine it was like 18 or 19, maybe before that, 17. What do you think separated you from probably your whole high school class, your whole college class, to be where you are today, where most people your age haven't even thought about what they want to do with their life?
That was a good guess. Like 17, I think, is where I was like really decided I was going to be an entrepreneur, because I accidentally got into flipping sneakers. And I went to the outlet mall on my 17th birthday. I'm going to buy myself some sneakers. And they were all super discounted. So I get home and I think about 3 or 4 pairs of shoes. And I'm like, man, I could probably sell these for more than I paid. So I put them on Facebook Marketplace. The next day, sold them. I think I made $100 profit off of 4 pairs. And then I took the money. I actually sold them in the parking lot of a shoe store and went back in and bought more. And then there's one pair, and it was a pretty rare situation, but I made almost $600 profit off of 1 pair of sneakers. I was like, man, like some of my friends don't even have $600. I'm never going to work a real job ever again. So I think the early exposure to what was possible, like you said, and this is different with my generation than yours, is I grew up with Grant Cardone on YouTube. Like, I was watching his videos when I was 16, 17, learning about commercial real estate and how you can... you calculate the NOI, and if you bump the rent $100 times 200 units, you make all this money. And I understood that because that information was available to me, like YouTube University. Watching guys like Graham Stephan, and he's here in Vegas. Do you know him?
Not personally, but yeah.
Yeah, so like I was watching him way back in the day, learned about personal finance and investing and being frugal and all that. So I think it was the interest level starting earlier was a big thing. And then when I was in college, I was just trying to figure out how to get out of college. That was definitely different. And at this point, I mean, as sad as it is to say, like it's hard for me to relate with a lot of the people that I met in college, because now they've all graduated and they've just got their jobs and they're doing their thing, and some of them are getting their master's degrees. And I'm like 4 years into this thing. Like I've learned more in the last 6 months about business than you could in the most expensive MBA on the planet. Like you're not going to learn what happened to me in the last year.
I love that you said that, because I can totally resonate. You know, when after high school, I went to college, dropped out freshman year, but I joined a fraternity, did the whole college thing because I bought into the dream that college is supposed to be the best 4 years of your life.
Right. And that's just what you do after high school. You go to college.
Yeah, that's the thing that you do. And I dropped out and ended up getting into network marketing, like I talked about, and learning a ton about the spiritual laws of success, and started reading books and communication and how to handle objections and investing, or reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all these things. And the same time period, I feel like those 4 years are so crucial, where most people, they'll sell those 4 years for an experience and for a degree, where for those people that can go learn an actual skill set or go learn some self-discovery or even go travel the world and learn more about themselves, those 4 years, at least in my experience, are some of the most crucial times in order to develop who you are as an adult moving forward.
Yeah.
And so many people will just conform to the system. Therefore, all they get is a piece of paper, some debt, and now they have to figure out where that 4 years you could be learning a skill set, a trade, experiences that could literally transform the next 10, 12, 15, 20 years of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, I figured out what my answer was. It was personal development. So that was I was probably And the entrepreneurship within me definitely started before 17, but that's where like I actually made money. There's a funny story. I'll actually tell it. So I used to make those like paracord bracelets. Do you remember those?
No.
It was like literally you just like, I don't even remember how to make it, but it was a trend when I was a kid, and I'd buy these really nice fancy clips, and I got really good at making them perfect. I didn't sell a single one because I didn't ask anybody to buy them.
Mm.
And then that was something literally just the last few months I realized, because of just thinking about my journey. And 14 or 15, my dad gave me a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad because someone had just introduced him to it, in his 50s, and started reading like How to Win Friends and Influence People, listen to Grant Cardone, Graham Stephan. All the personal development was a big differentiator for sure.
No, I love that, dude. I'm curious because you guys are real estate guys, and typically real estate guys, or at least the ones that I know, are very frugal is not the word, but invest. Make sure you're investing, setting up wealth. I think there's a big misconception, or not misconception, but a big need for guidance when it comes to especially millennials and the younger generation on investing for the future, investing into stocks and paying yourself first, like the richest man in Babylon talks about, and getting properties versus spending it, flexing on lifestyles, watches, cars. Shane, I see you got a Richard Mille on, which I want one day. I've got into watches over the last couple of years as well.
I see yours there.
But I guess
I sold all mine.
Yeah, probably smart. But I guess for you guys, what is the balance, do you think, or maybe in your own journey of success, between investing for the future and setting yourself up for freedom and not getting caught up in the Jones effect, but also rewarding yourself on your journey and making sure that you're allowing yourself to enjoy your life at the same time?
I'm going to steal something I saw on TikTok. That one of the Tate brothers said this, okay? But it was actually really good. He said, you should spend 50... Now, this is probably a little bit... I probably altered some of the numbers, but I'm going to say what he said. He said you need to take 50% of what you make and spend it as if you're going to live the next 50 days, and then use the other 50% as if you're going to live for the next 50 years. Because I had a friend actually in California, and he drowned, and he was only like 28, 29 years old. And then I had another friend, me and him looked like twins, and he got shot at a drive-in movie theater out of all places, and he was young, 28 years old too. And I was like, man, if they just work, invest, and they never enjoyed themselves now, they didn't. I think experiences are, you can never get that back. You know what I mean? Like going out of town, like you're married now, like you want to have all the experiences in the world. You don't wait till you're 60, right? So I think you need to have a good balance. I'm not going to say do something stupid, but the investor in me does do stuff. When I like this watch I bought, and I've traded up my watches for them, or I have a reason for them. It does help me with credibility, because I'm still a young guy. I like to think that anyway. Getting around these guys. And I've gotten deals because they see this for credibility. And as bad as this is a horrible habit for me and you, Matt. I feel bad for you already. This is a horrible addiction. But that and cars and everything. So I think you got to have balance. Don't be dumb. But I would say for someone like in their 20s, you need to sacrifice, some of this stuff, especially dumb stuff like this, right? For at least the first couple years, you know what I mean? And then as you get older, you can slowly do something stupid here and there, you know what I mean? But be smart.
I made that mistake.
Balance.
I had a Wimbledon date just, and I was obsessed with watches for a while. Like my whole Instagram feed, all watches, everything. Like and I was obsessed with it. I researched them forever. Like I was looking for watches for like a year, and then finally just bought one, and then wore it for a while. Yeah. Kind of stopped wearing it, and I sold it. Like I don't even care anymore. Like you won't see watches anywhere on my Instagram. It's weird. I shouldn't have bought it, but it was cool to have it for a while. Got some pictures with it.
I actually like watches. I got into them 2-3 years ago, similar to you. I had an AP, traded up. I have a sub as my daily. I think it's a cool place to park money, right? Obviously, it's probably better to buy a building or a house than a watch.
That was the thing, is like you could wear it, you keep it in the drawer, whatever, and then you could sell it for what you paid at least.
Yeah.
It's like a savings account.
Looks
cool.
Just on your wrist, right? for networking. Do you guys subscribe to the philosophy? Because you hear this a lot on social, and some of the stuff on social sounds really good, but it's not really practical. So I'm curious, do you guys subscribe to the fact that you should only buy your liabilities or watches, cars, lifestyle with passive income from investing it into real estate? Is that actual tangible, or is that just something that sounds great on social media?
It depends on what it is. Like so I don't know how solar works, but let's just say you made a $10 million contract on something. You might say, I might take 50 grand and buy a watch, so I think it just depends. But as far as like buying something, because Robert Kiyosaki says something on this, like whenever he wants something, he never pays cash, like a Ferrari or something he bought. My Lambo, I could have paid cash, but I financed it, so then so let's just say I have $250,000, or in this case, it was like 280, I think is what my Lambo was. If I could have taken that 280 and bought the Lambo, it's stuck in it. But if I take the 280 and I invested in something that produces cash flow to make the payment, give me a new asset, and make me some extra cash flow, then I'm going to do that. So
it's like an arbitrage of the cash flow.
It depends. Yeah, I'd rather have something. I can have both. So that's kind of that's how I would look at it. Yeah.
And Grant Cardone says all the time, like, buy this. He's got a bunch of stupid stuff, but he's like, the passive income paid for it. Like, it's not going to hurt me in the long run. And that's kind of the same thing. Like, a lot of people say buying a house is a bad investment. Like, it is a good place to store your money. It might go up. Like, you're going to have to deal with all that stuff. But there is the argument that you'd probably get a better return on your money if instead of putting $50K down on your house, you put $50K into a multifamily property that had value add potential. They're going to increase the rents. They're going to clean them up, make it look nice. Maybe you, in a few years, double or triple your money.
Yeah.
May or may not do that in your house, but you could just pay, $2,000 a month. Anything breaks, someone else pays for it. There's a pool, there's a gym, there's all this stuff. It's different philosophies, but I guess it really depends on what you want to do. I mean,
what do you think, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's all based on your risk tolerance, and it's all based on where you're at in your life and your career. I think nice things like watches. I'm in the process of buying a Urus. So I saw your video on Lamborghini. I think the Urus kind of cancels out a lot of your negatives that you said about that. It's more of a practical.
Someone in the comments told him, bro, just get a Urus.
Yeah. And it's a tax write-off. But naturally, I'm Jewish. So like in my blood is about kind of saving and growing up. We never had money. So, I still have those conditionings and those limiting beliefs whenever I go and try and extend myself, or like I just bought my the most expensive house is $1.5 million, which to me, like all my other properties are way less than that. So that was a big stretch in me.
Awesome,
so I think for me it all depends on your risk tolerance. It all depends on where you're at, and I think it's more of an intuition thing. At least is kind of how I do it. I want to make sure that one, I could buy that cash if I wanted to, right? Maybe not in the bank, but I could liquidate net worth in order to handle it in case worst case scenario and solar gets banned tomorrow from the United States. I don't want to be in a position where I have to ever worry about how am I going to pay the bills. But for me, it's also, I think it's important to reward yourself on the journey. And to your point, it's like you save, you work hard, you invest, and then something happens to you. You die, you pass away, something happens, your family passes away, and they're not able to experience all the things that you're putting energy into work for them. So I think it's all based on individuals. I think it's based on your own intuition. But I also do agree that you should be rewarding yourself, but most of the time you also should be making sure you're being smart, investing, and taking stock in your future. And I think it also it's important to get clear on what you want. For a really long time, I thought I wanted nice cars, nice lifestyle, and nice watches. And now all I really care about is creating freedom, financial freedom for myself. All that stuff is nice along the way, but it's not my primary driver anymore. Yeah. So I also think, though, that you have to get those nice things in order to realize that, right? If I'm telling someone like, hey, dude, like you shouldn't get a nice car, you shouldn't get a nice house. One, I'm a hypocrite because I have those things. But two, it's like you need to go experience that for yourself to realize it's like the Jim Carrey thing. It's right. I want everyone to be rich, successful, and famous so they can realize that's not what life is all about. Yeah. You have to go experience it before you can actually realize that that's not what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
And some of the stuff in there, even like you're smart about it. Even the stupid things we're talking about, the watches, the Lambo, like it's a tax write-off. We're financing it so I can put the money in something else. Cash flow pays for it anyway. The watch is going to appreciate, or at the very least, it's a good store of value. Like even these stupid things, there's smart decisions behind it. Like it's not that dumb.
100%.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm curious. So you both are successful in your own means. Do you guys feel like you have a secret sauce? Like if there was something about you, whether it's a characteristic, a skill set, a philosophy, a belief, something that you feel like has helped you accelerate your real estate and your professional career?
Mine, I think, has just been my network. And it's something that I probably should put more intention into building that skill set of connecting with people and building the relationships. But that's done everything for me. And I think I don't have a secret sauce. I just surround myself with people that are really good. Like I didn't know how to do that 10-unit deal, but I knew Shane and he told me how to do it. So that's been a big thing for me, just like building the network. And he tells me all the time, like I'm a master networker. I know everybody, or we can get into any of the rooms, but that's probably been it for me. Like other people are the key to my success.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and I would say for me, as many mentors as you can. Basically, what he's saying is the network that you have. And I think specifically for real estate, what helped me with mentors is I saw the younger guys teaching real estate and saw how they do it completely different than the old school guys. And like, cause I know the guy who created the word ARV, the after repair value, like it just like the way he done it. And then I mixed both of what the mentor said. I was like, man, this does work. And you can kind of create your own path. So I would say exactly what you said. It's just the mentors, the people that you have in your life, and definitely having someone to go to. So some of the best mentors now, really, Grant, whether people like him or not, there's some good stuff he has said. And honestly, I wouldn't have my apartment company if it wasn't for some of his videos.
That's what I've thought about. A lot of people hate on Grant Cardone and like blah, 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 whatever. But like the fact that he was putting out real estate content and I found it at 16, like that helped me a lot in my career. Whatever you want to say about it, Grant Cardone contributed to my success.
You're both talking a lot about proximity and mentors and getting around the right people. I think everyone knows that you need a mentor, right? Like Tim, right? You guys somehow attracted each other, right? You have that young networking spirit. You know the social media game, which is now encouraging Shane you to get on the social media game. And you have the portfolio, you have the success story, you have a lot of the credibility. Now you guys together are working together. You added value to him, he added value to you in different ways. What advice would you give to people to get around the right people or get proximity to some of these successful people? Obviously, you have your pay to play, your masterminds, your coaching, but are there other ways? Like Shane, I know you were on Richard Branson's island, and I think he helped you get a watch or something like that. I think you had the Jacob watch, the Bugatti watch.
Yeah. Well, Richard Branson didn't help me get
Not
that
Richard
watch,
Branson.
So I met, there was a charity that I had donated to, and I was able to meet Glenn Stearns of Undercover Billionaire, and then him and his wife are just like the best. Like honestly, out of all the mentors I really love and like admire and respect, Glenn and his wife, they are just like amazing. Because people with the wealth that they have, but the way they are with family and friends and just good integrity. In fact, he has a book he wrote called Integrity. So meeting him helped me meet Richard Branson and go to their island. That's where Andy Elliott, Bradley, and all them guys were there too. So that helped. And like you said, pay to play. I paid $100,000 to go meet Grant for this one-on-one. But also, I mean, you don't have to spend money. So I'd say phase one, go to all the mentors in your community that are doing what you want. Annoy them on social media, the people that you don't know, and try and get them to, finally meet with you and help you.
Free networking events. We started a free networking group online, talk to other real estate investors, like learn from them, see how you can add value. I think that's a big thing is like looking how you can add value to someone and not doing it expecting something in return. But if you add enough value, like money's going to come your way at some point.
Yep.
It has to.
I love that. Mentorship, it's everything, smart people learn from their own mistakes, brilliant people learn from other people's mistakes. And I think the cool thing about mentorship as well is obviously you're going to learn, they're going to teach you techniques, they're going to help you, lock down a multifamily property that you probably wouldn't have if you didn't have that intel.
Yeah.
But I also think the important part, at least on my mind, is it gaps your bridge of belief of what's possible. You know, like for me, when I was able to see people when I was 23 at the time, 24, making $20,000, $30,000 a month from their smartphone, it completely shifted my consciousness to be like, whoa, I don't have to do this 40-40-40 plan, go to, school, work 40 hours a week for 40 years of my life to hopefully retire off, 1/4 of my income. And that completely opened my mind. And when I started thinking better, thinking higher conscious thoughts, I was able to start acting differently and get better results. So I think the mentorship part's so important because, they're going to give you strategies and skills, but it's also going to raise your belief of what you can accomplish in your own life.
No, I love that. That's right.
Awesome, guys. Well, so much information. I hope people definitely can internalize and rewind and just really implement some of these things, right? Knowledge is great, but without application, it doesn't mean anything. So my last question for you guys, if you had to completely start over, both of you guys, right? Shane, obviously you're, 6-7 year real estate career. Tim, you're still a young man, but if you had to go back to when you were 17, 18 years old as a young college lad, if you guys had to completely start over, all your real estate portfolio gone, what would be your action plan to get back to where you need to be?
Exactly what I did when I went to Orlando. Start connecting with people and make some money. Because we only had a week to do the video, but it was like, okay, we made $7,500. Now, could have potentially gotten a no money down real estate deal, or a lot of people went down. But now I got $7,500 to put down. Now I can put $7,500 down on a house, and like Shane was saying, we can get a tenant buyer. Maybe someone gives me $20,000 down. Now you're just recycling that, and I think that's a strategy that now that I know it, and I didn't know that strategy before I knew Shane, like that's what I would do. Try to figure out how to make some cash. It's easiest if you can help someone who's already got the leads and they're 6 months into the follow-up, and you can just close it and then take that cash and use it how you need to acquire more properties.
Yeah, I want to brag on them too, because in October we started working together, me, Tim, and Colin in October. I think it was like October 1st that we started. You started 2 weeks later, actually, than that.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, so, but all around, since October, it's as if we started from nothing. That's kind of how we started. From October till January, we had bought $10 million worth of property, so we did start over. And then we sent them out on their own just to show and send cameramen to kind of film them starting over. And of course, we kind of using, like, I guess, what Glenn had created in Undercover Boone. He said, that's a great concept. We think we can get them to do a deal in 7 days. Only using a few different tactics, by the way, because we have a whole arsenal, a bunch of different things we could do, but they could only use 2 or 3 different methods to do it. And they were very impressive. So it's just, that's what we would do. Same thing.
So it wasn't about how big my network was or how much money I had.
Yeah.
It was just the knowledge I had to facilitate a real estate deal, I guess.
I need to go get some creative finance deals, y'all.
Man, you can do it. Man, you're in a great place. I was telling him we need to come
Vegas,
here to Vegas.
A lot of people are moving here. California, there's no state income tax. Live a very similar lifestyle.
I love Vegas for so many different reasons, right? Obviously, podcasts, had the opportunity to connect with you guys. If I didn't live here, probably, I don't know. If I lived in freaking Wisconsin, I don't know if you would make the flight to come do the podcast in Wisconsin, right? Yeah, maybe eventually, but no.
We would have come.
Vegas is an awesome spot. Tell us about So Capital and how people can get connected and potentially work with you guys.
All right. Well, first of all, so we have 2 funds. One's So Capital Management, and then the other one is Elite Capital Management. So one's a 506c, so anyone can do it. That's a debt fund. But as far as reaching out, I had an Instagram. My Instagram just got deleted like
a couple days ago.
A week ago.
We're going to work on getting that back for you, Shane.
Yeah, man. It got deleted, and it was at Shane So. Got deleted. Started a new one. It got deleted after a few days. So now we got a new one. That's at the Shane So right now. And then Tim, you want to say your
For the time
Instagram?
being, mine is at I'm Tim Stone. Yeah. So Instagram's the best. We're both trying to do YouTube, doing podcasts, and Shane's YouTube is awesome right now.
You're growing pretty quick. And you want to talk about the school community? That's new.
Yeah.
To
so
us.
Alex Hormozy partnered and invested in a company called School, which is really just for building online communities. And it's super cool. All the stuff, all the incentives they have built into it to make people leave comments and engage and DM each other is awesome. So it's really great for networking. So we like really launched it yesterday. It's called Acquisition Architects, and it's free. And right now it's really just networking and helping each other out on deals. And Shane's in there, I'm in there, all the guys on our team are in there answering questions. We're going to interview a billionaire, not tomorrow, but I think the next day.
With a B?
Like, with a B, for sure, billionaire. Should we just say who it is? I mean,
Well, yeah.
yeah, Glenn Stearns, like the guys you're talking about. We're going to we're flying to go see him tomorrow. And so like we've had people asking questions like, hey, what questions would you have for a billionaire? And it's just a cool thing because Shane's very, very busy, and I'm getting busier as we're doing more stuff like this. Easy way to stay connected and actually talk, and it's kind of fun. So Acquisition Architects is a good way to actually interact with us.
Love it. Guys, definitely go check these guys out. If you're not investing in real estate, if you're not learning about creative finance, if you're not taking yourself seriously, you need to, because at the end of the day, we only have one life, and how we set ourselves up today will dictate what happens with us tomorrow. So hope you guys got some value. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate you guys, committing, an hour and a half of your guys' time, and we'll see you guys on the next show.
See ya.
Yeah.